Michelle Marie McGrath. Hi and welcome to another episode of Unclassified Woman. Today I'm speaking to a very inspiring lady and very modest and understated, the lovely Azraella Raphael, all the way from New Zealand, but she's currently based in Australia. Azraella Raphael is an angelic healer and activator of angelic consciousness. Azraella began her journey many years ago when seeking fulfilment in life, in understanding why she's here, what purpose she offers, and with asking herself, how can I serve others? Azraella's journey began when she activated her own angelic consciousness and connected to her higher knowing, higher self, to bring through a different set of life skills, healing and reading sessions to support herself and humanity with their growth and evolution. Azraella now offers these sessions worldwide, online, by phone or in person, supporting those who've lost their way to align themselves to their highest path of potential, their purpose. Azraella also offers a range of healing and activation work in groups, is a mentor of the Divine University, offering happy life sessions, and provides charitable service to one of her deep loves that supports humanity, the Sirius Library project. She's based on the Northern Beaches in Sydney, Australia currently, and I think you're going to find her story very moving and inspiring like I do, and I feel as though this is a perfect example of how often we just don't know what life has got in store for us, and there is just so much that we can never foresee. Life will bring us so many different challenges and experiences in alignment with our soul's path, and various challenges that we just never know are going to suddenly appear in our lives at different moments. And so I really hope that you enjoy this today and really take in a lot of the wisdom that she's sharing. Enjoy. So hi Azraella, great to have you here today.
Thank you, Michelle, for inviting me.
I've been wanting to invite you for a little while, so I'm so pleased that we've managed to get this time together. And so just to give us some context, would you mind sharing a little bit about your background and whether you've not had a child due to personal choice or whether it's been circumstantial?
Well, not having a child was through personal choice. And this came about through walking, my own path of what I call my own truth, my divine truth. And, it wasn't always the plan within my mind, within my consciousness to not have children when I was younger. It was the plan to have children, to find that someone special, I guess you could say, and to start a family. And, as the years went by, there were a couple of potential relationships there where that path lay before us, and for various reasons, it didn't come together with them. And also during that time, I was, trying to find myself, find my way. What's my truth? What's my purpose? Why am I here? And in searching for all of that, I eventually came to a big crossroads. And I could see before me spiritually, I'm either going to go down the path of being the spiritual teacher, healer, path, or I'm going to choose, being a family maker, a homemaker. And I sat with this deeply, and this was because of an invitation I received to be trained as a mentor for the Divine University. And this was a very deep spiritual process for me to go through. And I remember clearly for about 2 or 3 nights while I was sleeping after I received this invitation, with my soul, it was really bringing up everything unresolved about the previous path, the previous intention of finding a partner, creating children, building a life together, etc. And it brought up all the unresolved grief or angst or anger or anything about that. One of the partnerships, this person did want to originally have children, and then 4 years into the partnership changed their mind. And so that was, for me at the time, quite a devastating blow. But of course, brought me to myself, checking in with myself. What do I really want? That's really when I began looking for what do I want to do as a career, because I went from very corporate in the music industry to this. And so with that deep healing that arose within me for about 3 nights, I was amazed because I thought I'd already done a lot of work with this. But my soul really found peace. And as I sat on that precipice, looking out, I went, you know what? After all this now, I really just want to serve the planet, serve the community. I really love what I do. I've spent the last, what are we now? Probably 14 years or so, deeply in it, evolving it all the time. And of course, now I'm in this position, there are no regrets. I absolutely love my life. I love the freedom. I love what I do. And it's amazing how, if you really listen, to your heart, and you really look at the opportunities or the paths before you, there's no right or wrong answer, but what you're learning to trust here is that you're going to be happy with whatever choice you make. That's what I saw, is if I went down the spiritual teacher path, it was going to be very filling and rewarding, but it would be a path of a lot of service to the planet. And if I went down the path of being a mother with a partner, it'd be a service to the children and to the partner, and would be more localized, within the home and within the local community at a stretch. And that's been my journey also with working with clients, because, of course, most of my clients are females. A lot of them ask about children, whether they have them or not, and especially get quite a number of women that are desperately trying to conceive. And I've been fascinated over the years with what Spirit has told them, for advice, through me being the channel and passing that information on. And a lot of them is about really aligning to your purpose. Yeah. What are you really here to do? Let's really look at this emotional attachment or mental attachment that we have to children. And we're not saying it's right or it's wrong, but let's just observe it. And let's really look at, are you walking the path of your highest potential? Because that's what was being presented to me at that time. And we sort of guide them. Are you really walking it? Are you doing what you've come here to do? Because maybe the reason you're feeling empty and you're thinking a child is going to fulfill you, well, it's not. It's not actually going to fill that void. Of course, you're going to love that child if you create it, support it, nurture it until it's fully grown and goes out into the world on its own. But, the amount of mothers that I've read for where they've devoted themselves to their child and their husband, and then they reach their 50s and 60s and they're empty and exhausted through so much giving, through so much service, because they forgot themselves. They forgot their purpose. They forgot about fulfilling their mission. They forgot that they're as equally as important as these beings that they're giving service to. And then, they're really forced in a big way to really think about themselves for the first time. And they really notice, gosh, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I like. I really don't know why I'm here. I forgot about that. It can be a very deep healing process for women of that age group. I've read for many of them, but with love, care, and attention and patience with yourself, you can, of course, align very quickly. And it doesn't matter what age you are. The thing I've observed the most with humanity, when, such a blessing doing readings in my jobs, because Spirit has taught me so much with working with people. And the science of life really is, love yourself and your purpose first, then you love another. The loving of another is the icing on the cake. And most humans want it the opposite way. I want to find a partner first, then I'll feel happy and complete. And then if I have time or can be bothered or whatever, I'll work out what my purpose is. And so I read for a lot of people that are very unhappy in their hearts because, they're focused more on projecting energy outside of themselves for fulfillment through that person they have a big romantic attachment to, or sometimes it's even career, the job that they're in, it's 60, 70 hours a week. They give their all to their job, and they don't realize how much they're not giving energetically, thought-wise, emotionally, spiritually to themselves, which is what's creating the void and the emptiness. And, a lot of people don't want to confront that emptiness, the void, they subconsciously keep themselves busy, even if the
Absolutely.
job doesn't make them happy, or they're not being paid the right amount, or maybe they've even got a partner that's not treating them very well. If I keep myself busy, I don't have to, address this deep core fear I have inside of, hey, really most people are, I'm going to be lonely forever if I focus on my purpose for a while. Well, the contentment that you get from your purpose, and obviously I'm speaking personally, but also what I've seen professionally with working with clients, there's nothing that beats it, really. It's so rewarding. You feel like you're achieving all of your dreams, and you're, like I said before, you're trusting that universe, spirit, God, whatever you want to call that energy out there, is going to provide all the happiness in your life that you're truly deeply looking for, deeper within yourself, not just more superficial desires. Hey, let's get married, have kids. And I'm not saying any of that's bad. It's all very beautiful if it's part of your purpose and your mission. But whether you choose to have them or not, you're trusting that if you choose not to, I'm just going to fully embody myself with my purpose and my path and find fulfillment through that.
So true. You make so many great points there. And when you were talking about how you spent that time really deeply feeling anything that was unresolved about that, I think that's a really important point, because we are socially conditioned to follow a certain script, follow the path. And so often women don't necessarily take the time to explore, is this really right for me? Is this really what I want? Or is this just what I've been conditioned to believe is what I should, I say in inverted commas, should be doing, because it's the expectation from my family. And also, it can be flavored if there is any kind of religious background. Is it what all my friends are doing because I'm of a certain age? So there's so much of this that's just not really explored. And then, as you say, bingo, often later on, women feel like, wow, I've lost myself in that. I don't really know who I am anymore. And it's at that point where it's later on, the children might be a bit older, and it's probably the first time they've actually really had any time to themselves to contemplate, well, what's next? And that can be really hard, especially if they've been so busy that they haven't really had a space in their life to explore that. And so it's really interesting, like how so often if somebody doesn't have children and you don't know what their story is, I've heard so many women say this, often they're queried like, well, why haven't you, didn't you want them? But you would never say to somebody with children or who was pregnant, well, why do you want them? And surely that is actually the bigger, more pertinent question. Like you say, if that's part of your purpose and, what you're here to do in this lifetime is to give birth to another beautiful being, then great. But it isn't the path for every woman. And we're seeing this more and more now. And of course, for so many reasons, even if that's what you wanted and that was your desire, it's not always possible, So it's just this is so multifaceted. And so that's why, as you've mentioned, it's so important to really get to know yourself and to look inward and not be so distracted by everything externally. But that can create so much confusion because of how we're socially and culturally conditioned to look for the answers outside instead of realizing, I need to form a relationship with myself and get to know myself, and then the overflow can go into my other relationships. And so it's just, I agree with everything you've said. It's just so important that we look internally for the answers, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, it's been a very enlightening journey because, like I said, I work with a lot of women in my career. And it's really amazing, as I've watched some of my clients grow, they might go off and listen. If they've recorded the reading, they go off and listen again and go, wow, like you've just said, Michelle, there's some, very good points there, things that I haven't really thought about. What I'm noticing with the trends of society is that it's not really impressed upon young people to find yourself and your purpose first.
Yeah.
And bless our grandmothers and our parents sometimes. Sometimes they just want us to hurry up, get married, have kids so they can have grandkids and be happy.
Yeah.
God loves them,
Exactly.
especially certain cultures.
Yeah.
And, I get these people in front of me going, I'm being guided. I want to work on my career and my purpose a bit more. And I've got all this pressure with my family. What do I do with my family? Sort of thing. And of course, sometimes there's not a lot you can do. It's their choice whether they want to keep pestering you or whatever, but you don't have to put up with it.
Yeah. Did you ever feel any pressure from your own family or friends?
Not so much. I mean, maybe more in my youth when I was younger, in my 20s, because everybody then, especially because I was from a small town, and although I left it, in my early 20s and went to London for a while, but the theme at, high school, for example, was, okay, so you're going to get a job and then who you're going to marry and have kids to, and then you just do that. And then if you're lucky, you retire and then you die. And that's pretty much everyone's life plan. It's very, very simple.
Yeah.
And I would be listening to everyone going, oh, there's just no way. I mean, sure, maybe, I'll have kids or whatever, but I want to see the world. And, I always wanted to delay everything.
Yes.
I wanted to see the world and try this in career and do that. And in the small town where I grew up, no one really had those aspirations. Their dreams were very simple, or local. And so off I went abroad. And, of course, then I meet a lot of what I call soul family, like-minded people who have similar vision to me. They want to travel the world. They're not interested in settling down and all of that yet. And so that continued, for a while. And then, like I said, I got to this crossroads about becoming a spiritual teacher and healer.
Mm-hmm. And so have you ever had any grief at all, letting go of the idea of motherhood? I know you said you had that time where some unresolved feelings came up that you addressed and you kind of went through, but is that something that ever recurs periodically? Because I know that, grief's a very funny thing in terms of sometimes it's not like, okay, well, I've been upset for a week now. I'm over that. I've dealt with it. It can come at different times in your life. It can surprise us sometimes because feelings can kind of come seemingly unexpectedly when we're not necessarily focused on that. So have you had any interesting experiences with that?
No, that not since that, big deep journey that I went through for about 3 nights. That was like the completion, and I knew it was. I knew I was going, okay, we're going to be really clear in our heart about this, and there's no judgment about which path I'm choosing to take here. Spirit, God, Source is going to love me no matter what, but I'm really clear this is it. And so leading up to that point, I don't think I'd had a lot of grief about it. There was always just optimism of, if I'm going to do this, I'll meet the right person in divine timing.
Yeah.
When I was in that partnership where that person changed their mind, that was the big blow because I went into that. We discussed it really early. I was really clear about where I wanted things to go with somebody, whether it was them or someone else long term. That's what I was aiming for. And so to have it all completely gone, within a few minutes, one day after a few years of being together with somebody, that's probably when I experienced the deepest amount of hurt and pain about that. And so, there was a lot I was dealing with then, and maybe periodically little bits a few years after that, but I was never that desperate. If I was desperate, I could have just got IVF. I could have just got anyone off a dating app. I was never that desperate for it. If it was the right sort of divine union with a partner and they were prepared to pull their weight in the partnership and do their fair share. I mean, that was the key thing I was looking for in someone too, is are they going to do their fair share? Or, again, in my career, I read for a lot of women where their partner doesn't necessarily deliver that much on the parenting side. And the woman ends up doing the bulk of it. And a lot of the time they don't even know that they're doing the bulk of it, that they're carrying 80-90% of the partnership, of the family routine. And this is why they're utterly exhausted and not able to think of themselves. And sometimes their partners aren't even aware of it because this is normal. right? They've never had
Yes.
to think about it. They don't feel like they're letting their partner down because it's never been raised. Maybe they were in a household where that happened and it was never taught to them, to be a bit more proactive perhaps in the energy exchange between the partner and the children. And, so sometimes always there's a wake-up call, isn't there? Something happens in
Yes.
the life where
Yeah.
there's a bit of a slap from the universe. This energy exchange between you and your partner, you and the children, you and the universe in general isn't balanced. And what are you going to do about it? And if you keep putting it off, that's when physical illnesses and that sort of stuff starts to happen, because your body can only do that for so long if you keep denying it, not listening to it.
Absolutely. So true, isn't it? It's really interesting how that works when we just can go along and keep ignoring something, keeping ourselves busy so we don't have to look at it. And then all of a sudden it's like, wallop, here you go. Decisions being made for you. Now you need to deal with it. And that can be, much more difficult when you're forced into that. And it's quite a rude awakening, and often one of those huge experiences of transformation that we get pushed into, often, which is not that pleasant. And so, obviously, just because somebody doesn't necessarily have biological children in their life, it doesn't mean that they don't have children in their life, full stop. I know so many women who have got very special relationships with their friends' children, like they might be godparents, they've got a special relationship with a niece or a nephew. And I know that you've got a very special relationship with your nephews who you're very close to. So would you like to share a little bit about that? Because I know it's very special.
Yes. Well, part of the reason when, I was going through this deep process of this, while I was sleeping and 3 nights of all this stuff coming up, it was just like, wow. One of the reasons that I chose to go down the path of the spiritual healer and teacher was, for probably maybe 6 years leading up to that point, something like that, my sister had given birth to her eldest child. And I had become very much a big playmate for him. And not long after he was born, I would spend a morning a week at that stage, because he was so young and needed his mother. And I would come over and be with my little play friend. And I would clear the diary, no clients, and bond with him. And he would even cry when I would leave. It was such a sweet little relationship. And as he got bigger, I stayed, the whole day, and I would support mum and give her a rest. And we would just play all day with one another. And then as he started approaching 5 and getting ready for school, I was like, wow, that role's going to change now, because, I'm used to being with him all day, but he's going to be at school. What's this new role going to be? And then my sister calls me and says I'm pregnant again. And I'm like, yippee, because I get to do it all again for another 5 years. I was so happy. And she was elated because she wanted a little buddy. Yeah, amazing time. I was like, yay. And so I would always be there when the eldest one came home from school. And so for 10 years, I have done this, over 10 years now, where they were in my family. And I do remember sitting and going, wow, if I have a family now, I will not have that day a week with my nephews that I love so much. I love going there and spending time with them. And that actually made me feel a little bit sad, brought up feelings of sadness. And I thought, oh, it's, now it's different. I've got a big commitment that I've made, with these children. And I know they'd be devastated if Auntie didn't come round. Of course, they'd get over it, move on, but they'd be devastated if Auntie didn't come round, for their weekly play day and get the love and attention that they're used to getting from me. And so I know for a fact if I didn't have that bond with my nephews, I quite possibly would have gone down the other path.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I thought, I've got my nephews now. I don't need to have them. That's what popped into my head.
Yeah, that you were expressing that love and nurturing for these little people in your life.
Yes, and I had the best of both worlds. I got these beautiful children that, adore playing with me and look up to me, and I absolutely adore them. And I get to be with them all day once a week, and then I get all my freedom for the rest of the week. I do my job. I don't have the responsibility of having to, do all the other stuff Mummy does or Daddy
Yes.
does. I get to go and get all the rewards of their labor, basically.
And
And
just have
play
that,
with
yeah, and
them.
then you can hand them back when they're tired and grumpy.
Yes, pretty much. Or when I'm tired and grumpy at the end of the day, it's like, oh, God, I get to go home to this quiet house that's sane, and there aren't toys everywhere. And so, yeah, that went on for 10 years. And, I'm pretty sure you know what happened to my sister recently. She suddenly died. And that was 8 months ago now. And so, she'd had some health complications, but they weren't life-threatening, but she'd lost a lot of weight, became very weak, and in the end, a common cold killed her, took her
Gosh.
from this earth. And so from that night that she passed, I've been living as a temporary situation with my brother-in-law with the children.
Wow.
And I have been the bridge between her and the spirit world, if you want to call it that, and with the family, and just holding the mother energy because we're
Mm,
genetically related. The work that I do, that I'm a channel, she
yeah.
has let me know right from the very beginning, that's the right thing to do with that child. That's the right thing, what you're talking about here. I'd be discussing things with the father or other in-laws about potentials moving forward, and she'd just tell me, you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly right. So I'd be guided all the time. For the first few weeks, especially, these were all the highest things to do for the children and the family.
Yeah.
And then, of course, after a while, that communication slowed down a bit because we'd put all the basics in place. This included driving for school runs because Mum did it,
Yes.
because father's not able to due to his health condition. He's got epilepsy
Oh,
and little things like that. So here we are, a little over 8 months down the track, and I can see moving forward my role, or that spiritual contract, if you will, is changing there. And, over the next sort of few weeks, few months, I'll be stepping out a little bit more, coming back into my own space, starting to work more on my own stuff and not just being of service immediately
mm,
to the family first. And, the boys are doing tremendous despite everything. And, trust me, I've done everything I can possibly think of
yeah.
spiritually with the work to support them, to have
Yeah.
the light bridge between, heaven and earth open for them to commune with Mum in the spiritual planes. Obviously, this is when they're
Mm,
sleeping, etc. And, being an angelic healer and activator, there's an angelic pillar in the house and all the emissaries are there. And, there's free healing programs on the Sirius Library. I'm about to enroll them in.
beautiful.
Um, and so we're, after all of this, we're in a great space, I believe, and the only way is up from here. And I know long term they'll be just fine, but you can imagine it was a massive lifestyle
Of
change for me.
course. But you know what is really extraordinary, isn't it, how life unfolds? And we just don't really know. But if you'd had your own children, young children that you'd been looking after, you
Mm.
maybe wouldn't have had the ability to step in and help as much as you've been able to, or you would have done it, but it would have been a lot more
A lot.
taxing and complicated.
Yes.
So isn't it
Yes.
extraordinary that you've had that contract with your sister and your nephews, and that
Mm.
you've been able to really support and facilitate that for them in that way during this huge transition for them all and for you?
Yeah. Yeah. It's been big. It's been an honor. And, if someone had told me, oh, this is going to happen one day, I mean, I probably would have
Yeah.
thought they were either off track or there's just no way that I could possibly do that. And of course, when she first did die, I could see God was offering me this role. And
Mm.
of course, initially I was like, how on earth am I going to do that? My life is so full. It's so busy. And I've just had to work out practically, well, this is what has to go on hold for now. And even with clients, I'm not as available hours wise.
Yeah.
I'm having to work weekdays within school hours at the moment. And I use one day in the weekend for people, I have a whole day blocked out. And that's just how I'm operating at the moment for the next few weeks, maybe the next 3 to 6 months maximum. And then I'll go back to my regular routine. But, the most important thing, of course, is holding in our heart these children and of course, the father, really, because,
Yeah.
it was a shock to him. And, I was with her all day the day before she died, so I'm so blessed with that. It was like I got,
To have that
that last
time.
big day. And but she plummeted suddenly on a Saturday when I was working, and so of course my phone was off, and by the time I got all the calls and messages, she was gone.
Gosh. Wow,
Mm.
that's huge. That's a huge time for you.
Mm.
Gosh. Yeah, we never know, do we? There's so much that you just can't foresee. It's just these challenges and experiences that we have, like with our family and soul family, these connections.
Mm-hmm.
And gosh, that's just a testament to you've been amazing there. That's huge. And how lucky those children are to have you in their life.
And lucky me. I mean, my point is, I guess, with the story is that motherhood has come to me differently,
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
way that I didn't anticipate or see and wasn't meant to see, because, I didn't get a heads up from spirit that she was in trouble. She didn't come to me saying I'm in trouble.
yeah,
I didn't know anything until I went to look at my phone at the end of the day. And so it's part of the divine plan, is my point. I would
yeah,
have been, if it wasn't part of the divine plan for her to go, I would have got the calls, or,
yeah,
maybe spirit would have notified me. And so, what I've noticed over the years, again, with myself and with clients, is that, if the motherhood energy is really calling you, it's not always necessarily through children directly.
exactly,
With a lot of
exactly.
people it is, though, but
Yeah,
not with everyone. And so, it's like, okay, well, why am I being called to this motherhood energy? It may not be shown to you for a while, as it wasn't to me, but who knows what's in store for you. And sometimes, we give our mother energy through daycares. We're daycare care workers for beautiful
yeah,
little children, or we're a teacher, and that's where we get our motherhood energy fix. Or we're nurses,
yeah,
we're in hospitals giving, beautiful people that are struggling with whatever condition they have, even if it's just a little hold of the hand while you're taking their pulse. You could give them so much more just with setting the intention of, I'm here to just pass the mother love energy
yes,
while I'm here. And, get your emissary or angel teams, if you're into that, to be with you to do that. There's so many different ways. And if a lot of women perhaps knew that more consciously, if it was talked about more in
yes,
public in a general sense, they would lose all this desperate, sort of attachment, or the stigma around it all of, oh, the only way I'm going to find fulfillment here on this earth is if I pop out some children.
exactly,
And
exactly.
there are many paths to fulfillment, is my point. Many paths. And again, you're trusting that if I'm walking my highest path of potential, I'm going to be happy and fulfilled on that path. Even if it means I have to let go of some attachment or romantic notion about what family, what children is about. And again, I'm stressing here, I'm not saying being a mother, having children, being in a partnership is wrong in any sense. A lot of people have that contract here to do that. But like you said, Michelle, a lot of people also don't.
Yeah. And also, I know a lot of women, they have a very strong environmental and ecological connection, and they have consciously chosen not to have children because
Mm.
they see it as that is them being responsible for what they see
Mhm.
as a very overpopulated planet, and also
Mhm.
children who are already here who need care and support, who are not
Mhm.
receiving adequate mothering. And so they might sponsor children, or they might
Mhm.
work, very much with different charities that are connected to the environment, for example. So there's just so many different paths available to all of us. And also, I feel because we're all creative beings,
Mhm.
we're all birthing and creating, and part of those natural cycles. We're indivisible from nature, really, but it's just often people forget that. And
Mhm.
so it's also about that creative self-expression, like you say, that can come in so many different forms. It could be the way you problem solve, it could be the way you dress, it could be the way you furnish your house, it could be the way you make a meal. Like there's no limit to how you can express that nurturing, creative, caring energy. So how do you feel that you express yourself, like creatively? Have you got any other particular ways that that help you to really feel in that flow, that are fun or enjoyable for you?
Well, with my life's work being a spiritual teacher and healer, the way that I create is grounding, healing programs or workshops or
Yes.
whatever it is. And that just pours through my being constantly.
Yes.
And I'm constantly being recalibrated and invited by spirit to bring through this thing, bring through that thing. And so I'm in creation mode really
Yes.
pretty much all of the time.
Yeah.
And so I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. Like I said before, I absolutely love what I do. It's really interesting how life has turned out for me, Here I am sort of mothering these children and, I'll hold that space for them, for my nephews for some time yet, but, won't be living with my brother-in-law. I'll be doing it from afar, eventually. And it's going to be sort of the perfect sort of balance for a while. I'll have this beautiful time with my nephews, with the children, and then I'll come back to my work and, focus more on what it is that's in highest divine order for me to create and offer to humanity and the planet in that time.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure hearing you share all of that and so much wisdom. And would you like to share the best place for people to find you online, where they can find out more about the work that you're doing if they want to connect with you, and then we can include that?
Yeah, sure. If anyone's guided to receive or want to know more about the work that we offer, my website address is azraellaraphael.com. And I'm sure Michelle will put that.
Yes.
And type that up because it's an unusual name to spell.
Yeah.
And there we provide, a list of our services and potential events coming up. And there'll be blog posts, etc., coming soon. I'm about to publish a new site at the moment as we're talking, Michelle. So
wonderful. Well, by the time this is live, that will probably be up and ready for people.
Yes, I believe so.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time and all of your beautiful sharing.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Blessings to you and your show. I believe it's going to help a lot of women.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Unclassified Woman. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. For information on events and services, connect with Michelle at michellemariemcgrath.com.